My mother posted the video at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I know the exact time because I was still awake, sitting at my desk in the corner of my bedroom, finishing a client report that was due by midnight. I had my headphones on. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then again, 4 times in a row, which was unusual enough that I pulled one ear cup back and looked at the screen. My cousin had tagged me in something. The caption my mother wrote read, "Hallelujah, the nest is finally empty. Maya has officially flown the coop or crawled out of it, more like. 31 years old and she finally figured out how to use a moving truck. We are celebrating tonight." There were 3 photos attached. The first was my bedroom bare mattress, empty shelves, a patch of wall where I'd hung a calendar for 4 years. The second was my mother and my younger sister standing in the doorway of that room, arms around each other, both grinning. My sister was holding a glass of wine. My mother had written "reclaiming our space" in the caption below it. The third photo was me. It was from 3 years ago, taken at my nephew's birthday party. I was sitting alone at a table in the background, eating cake off a paper plate, looking at my phone. My mother had cropped it so it was just me, slightly blurry, slightly hunched. The caption under that one said, "The dependent daughter, finally independent. Or at least, finally, gone." That post got 42 likes in the first hour. My aunt, my mother's older sister, commented, "About time. Some birds just need a real hard push lol." 11 people liked that comment. My sister wrote, "The house feels lighter already." My cousin on my father's side, the one who had tagged me in the first place, added, "Wow, Maya finally adulting at 31, better late than never, right?" I read every single comment. I did not respond to any of them. I set my phone face down on the desk, finished the client report, submitted it at 11:58, and then I sat in my new apartment, a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building 22 miles away from my mother's house, and I thought about what I was going to do next. I want to back up, because if I start from that Tuesday night, none of this makes any sense. You need to understand what the last 4 years actually looked like, because my mother's photo of my old bedroom told one story, and the spreadsheet I opened on my laptop the next morning told a completely different one. I am a medical billing specialist. I work remotely, full-time, for a mid-sized healthcare group. I have worked there since I was 26. The job pays well enough that when my father had his first cardiac event 4 years ago, and the family needed someone to step in and manage things, I was the one with the most stable income and the most flexibility, so I was the one who moved back home. My father recovered. That part went well. What did not go as planned was everything that came after. My mother does not work. She stopped working when my sister was born, 18 years ago, and never went back. My sister is 23, lives at home, works part-time at a nail salon, and contributes approximately nothing to household expenses. My father runs a small landscaping business that has been about to turn a corner for 6 consecutive years. The business makes money sometimes. It also loses money sometimes. The months it loses money, someone has to cover the gap. That someone was me. It started small. The electric bill one month when my father's equipment broke and wiped out the account. Then the water bill. Then I noticed the property tax. Noticed sitting unopened on the kitchen counter, and asked about it, and my mother said they were handling it, and I looked at the date and it was already 30 days overdue, so I paid it. $4,300. I paid it from my savings account and told myself it was temporary. Temporary lasted 4 years. By the time I moved out last month, I had been paying the homeowner's insurance on a house that is not in my name. I had been paying the cell phone plan that covered my mother's line, and my sister's line, and my father's line. I had been covering the gap months for the landscaping business, the shortfalls that came when a contract fell through, or a piece of equipment needed replacing, or my father simply miscalculated what a job would cost. I had set up and was paying for the business liability insurance because my father had let the old policy lapse, and I found out when a client threatened to sue over property damage and there was nothing in place to cover it. I was also, for the last 14 months, making the mortgage payment on the house. My father took a second mortgage out on the property 2 years ago to buy a new truck for the business. The truck was necessary. The loan terms were not great. When the business had a bad quarter and the payment got missed twice, and the bank sent a notice. I found it in the stack of mail my mother kept on the counter by the microwave. I sat down with my father, we went through the numbers, and I started covering that payment because the alternative was the house going into default. I did not ask to be added to the deed. I did not put anything in writing. I was just trying to keep things from falling apart. That is what I was doing in my bedroom every night while my family watched television downstairs. The reason I moved out was not dramatic. It was not a fight. It was a Thursday afternoon when I was on a work call, and my mother knocked on my door twice, then opened it without waiting, and asked me if I had taken the good scissors because she couldn't find them. I was on a call with a client. My camera was on. I held up one finger to indicate I needed a minute, and my mother said, loudly, "I don't know why you have to be so rude. It's just a question." Maya and left the door open when she walked out. That was not the first time something like that had happened. It was just the time I decided I was done. I signed a lease the following Monday. I gave my family 2 weeks' notice, which I thought was reasonable. My mother's response was to say, "Well, don't expect us to help you move," and go back to watching her show. My sister asked if she could have my bedroom. My father said he hoped I knew what I was doing. I moved out on a Saturday. No one helped. That was fine. I hired 2 movers, loaded my things, handed over my key, and drove away. I had been in my new apartment for 6 days when my mother posted those photos. Now, here's what my family did not know, and what I had not told them, because they had never asked. I opened the spreadsheet the morning after the post. I had maintained it since the first year I moved back, in every payment I had made on their behalf, the account it came from, the date, the amount. I had kept it out of habit more than anything else. I am a billing specialist. Tracking financial records is what I do. The total across 4 years was over $78,000. I want to be clear about something before I go any further. I did not keep that spreadsheet as leverage. I did not move back home with a plan. I was trying to help my family, and I did help my family, and for a long time I told myself that was enough. I am telling you about the spreadsheet because it is relevant to what happened next, not because I had been waiting to weaponize it. What I had been doing, in the 6 days between moving out and the night of my mother's post, was a quiet and entirely legal process of removing myself from every account I had set up or was maintaining on my family's behalf. I had started this before the post. I had been planning to do it regardless of how my family behaved. I was no longer living in that house. There was no reason for me to continue paying for it. I had notified the cell carrier that I would be removing the secondary lines from my account at the end of the billing cycle and that the account holders would need to establish their own plans. I had updated the homeowner's insurance policy to list my parents as the primary contacts and removed my payment information. I had called the mortgage servicer and updated the contact information so that all future notices would go to the address on file, my parents' address, rather than to my email. The business liability insurance had a renewal date coming up in 3 weeks. I had not renewed it. I had also, quietly and without announcement, closed the joint checking account my father and I had opened 2 years earlier for the explicit purpose of managing household expenses. I had moved the remaining balance to my personal account, which was entirely within my rights because I was the one who had funded it. I left a note in my father's email. I had set up his email account years ago and still had access, letting him know the account was closed and providing the final balance statement. I did all of this before the post went up. I want to be clear about that. The post did not cause my decisions. My decisions were already made. What the post did was make me stop feeling guilty about them. I read the comments one more time on Wednesday morning, over coffee in my own kitchen, in my own apartment, where no one knocked on my door to ask about scissors. My mother had added a new comment overnight. "It's quiet here for the first time in years. Peaceful." I keep forgetting she's gone and then remembering and smiling. That one had 16 likes. I liked it myself. Then I put my phone away and went to work. The first call came on a Thursday, 11 days after I moved out, 5 days after the post. It was my sister. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail said, "Hey, so, my phone is saying something about my plan changing. I don't really understand it. Can you just fix it when you get a chance?" I did not call back. My mother called Friday morning. Then Friday afternoon. I let both go to voicemail. The first message was short. Maya, call me when you get a chance. The second was longer. Her voice was different, not angry, which surprised me. She sounded confused. She said the insurance company had sent something in the mail, and she wasn't sure what it meant and could I look at it. I did not call back. Saturday was quiet. I went to the farmer's market near my new apartment. I bought tomatoes and a candle that smelled like cedar. I had lunch by myself at a cafe with outdoor seating and read 60 pages of a book I'd been trying to finish for 3 months. It was a very good Saturday. Sunday morning, my father called. I almost answered. My father and I have always been easier with each other than my mother and I. He is not a mean person. He is just a person who avoids things he doesn't want to deal with. And for a long time, I was one of the people who made it possible for him to do that. I let it go to voicemail. His message said, Maya, I need you to call me back. There's some kind of issue with the mortgage. I got a letter. I need to understand what's happening here. I listened to the message twice. Then I texted him. I saw your message. I'm not available to talk this week. You should call the mortgage servicer directly. The number is on the statement. He called again 20 minutes later. I did not answer. By Monday, the calls were coming from numbers I didn't recognize, which told me my sister's phone plan had officially lapsed and she was calling from someone else's phone. There were also 2 calls from my aunt, which was new. My aunt had been one of the people who liked my mother's post. Monday evening, my cousin, the one who had tagged me in the original post, sent me a long text message. It started with okay, so I don't really know what's going on, but your mom called my mom and apparently there's some stuff with bills? And ended with, I'm sure it's just a miscommunication. You know how your mom is? Maybe just give her a call? I responded. Thanks for reaching out. It's not a miscommunication. I did not explain further. Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after I moved out, I woke up to 14 missed calls. 7 from my mother, 3 from my father, 2 from my aunt, 1 from my sister's new number, 1 from a number I didn't recognize that turned out, when I looked it up, to be a neighbor of my parents who I had met twice in my life. There were also 22 text messages. I read all of them before I got out of bed. My mother's messages had changed in tone over the course of the week. The earliest ones were still in the voice of someone who expected me to fix things. By Tuesday, they were different. One said, Maya, I really need you to call me. I don't understand what's happening with the insurance. Your father is very stressed. Another said, the mortgage company called. I didn't know about the second mortgage. I didn't know things were this bad. Please call me. That message stopped me for a moment. She didn't know about the second mortgage. My father had taken it out. I had been paying it, and my mother had not known. I had assumed she knew. I had never verified that assumption, because it had never occurred to me that my father would take a mortgage out on the family home without telling his wife, or that my mother would have zero awareness of the financial state of the household she lived in, or that both of those things could be simultaneously true while I was downstairs paying for all of it. I sat with that information for a few minutes. Then I got up, made coffee, and went to work. My sister's text, sent at 2 inches the morning, said, Maya, I know you're mad, but my phone doesn't work, and I have an interview tomorrow. Please just add me back. I'll pay you back. I promise. My sister has been promising to pay me back for 4 years. The total amount she has promised to pay back, across various small loans and covered expenses, is somewhere around $11,000. The total amount she has actually paid back is 0. Not because she is a bad person. I genuinely do not think she is a bad person. She just never does it, and no one has ever made her, and there was always someone nearby to absorb the shortfall. I did not add her back to my plan. My father's last text said, I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything right now, but the mortgage payment is due in 9 days, and I don't have it. I'm asking you to help one more time while I figure this out. I'm asking as your father. I read that one 4 times. I thought about the 4 years. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about my mother's caption, the dependent daughter, finally independent, or at least finally gone. I thought about the 16 likes on the comment about smiling every time she remembered I was gone. I thought about my father's face when he said, "I hope you know what you're doing," the day I moved out. He wasn't asking me. He was warning me. He had always known, on some level, what would happen when I left. He just hadn't told anyone else, and he certainly hadn't thanked me, and he had liked my mother's post. I typed a response to my father. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it and typed something shorter. "I can't do that. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am." I set my phone on the kitchen counter and stood at my window for a while. My new apartment faces east. It was just past 7 in the morning, and the light was coming in flat and gold across the floor, and I stood there in it, and I felt something shift in my chest that I didn't have a name for right away. It wasn't satisfaction, exactly. It wasn't relief either, though there was some of that. It was something quieter. Like putting down something heavy that you've been carrying so long you stop noticing the weight, and then suddenly your arms are empty, and you're standing very still, and you're trying to remember what it felt like before you picked it up in the first place. I blocked my mother's number that afternoon. I want to be honest about that. I know some people will think that was too far, or too cold, and maybe it was. But I had read 31 years of experience about what happened when I left a line open. And I had also read the post she made calling me a dependent daughter while she was living in a house I had been paying for, and I made the decision I could live with. I did not block my father. I left that line open. I don't know if that was the right choice. I'm still working through what my father's role in all of this was, because it's more complicated than my mother's, and I'm not ready to flatten it into something simple. What I did do, 2 weeks after I moved out, and the morning after the 14 missed calls, was write an email. I sent it to my father. I copied no one. The email was not angry. I am not interested in performing anger for an audience. It was a document. It listed 4 years of payments, with dates and amounts. It listed the accounts I had removed myself from, and the dates those changes would take effect. It listed the business liability insurance renewal date, and noted that I would not be renewing it, and included the name of 3 insurance brokers in his area who could help him find a replacement policy before the lapse became a problem for his business. At the end of the email, I wrote, "I moved back in to help when you got sick. I'm glad you're okay." I did not intend to still be helping 4 years later, and I should have had this conversation with you directly instead of just continuing to absorb the cost. That was my mistake. But it was not my only mistake, and it was not the biggest one made in that house. I wish you well with the business. I hope you figure out the mortgage. I sent it at 8:14 on a Wednesday morning. I have not received a response. I don't know that I need one. Here is the thing about being the person who holds things together. No one sees you doing it. Not because they're evil, though some behavior in this story was genuinely unkind, but mostly because when things are working, no one asks why. The mortgage gets paid, and no one thinks about the mortgage. The insurance renews, and no one notices the renewal. The phone works, and it's just a phone. The only time the infrastructure becomes visible is when it stops. I was 31 years old, living in a bedroom in my mother's house, working until midnight most nights to keep a household running that my family believed was running on its own. And when I left, they threw a party. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing it because I spent a long time believing that being useful to people who needed me was the same thing as being loved by them. I am still untangling those two things. I think I'll be untangling them for a while. My new apartment has an east-facing window and a kitchen, with enough counter space and a bathroom I share with no one. Last weekend I hung something on the wall for the first time, a print I bought at the farmer's market. Nothing fancy, just something I liked. I hammered the nail in myself and stepped back and looked at it and thought, this is mine. That is a small thing. I know it is a small thing. But I have learned, recently, not to underestimate small things. If the people in your life only notice what you do for them, when you stop doing it, I want you to think about that, not in anger, just honestly. What exactly have they been valuing this whole time? You, or the labor you provide? Because those are two different things. And you deserve to know which one it is, before you spend another 4 years finding out the hard way. I am 31 years old. I have a 1-bedroom apartment and an east-facing window and more money in my savings account than I have had in years. I have a Saturday routine now. I have counter space. I am, for the first time, in a long time, Doing just fine.